Over the millennia, sharks have earned a name for themselves as nature's perfect killing machines, and Maneater's titular sea monster certainly lives up to that reputation. Roaming the Gulf of Mexico is a pissed-off bull shark with an insatiable appetite for human flesh and mutagens like a one-shark Sharknado is certainly a campy thrill. Its limitation, though, is that it's just as single-minded as its predator protagonist. The vast majority of what you'll do in Maneater are go here, kill X of this animal or people objectives, by way of combat that's as deep as a puddle, broken up by some amusing exploration and gathering of collectibles. Our shark anti-hero has her own personal Captain Ahab in the form of a sleazy Cajun shark hunter with his own Deadliest Catch-style reality series. The show serves as a very loose framing device for the roughly 15-hour story, which, and I don't mean to shock you here, doesn't end up as an especially thought-provoking tale. This game is entirely tongue-in-cheek, of course, but the shark hunter plays his vendetta a little bit too straight to be memorably goofy.
I ain't got time to answer questions all day. Got work to do.
The show's narration by Chris Parnell of Rick and Morty and Archer fame, however, nails it. His disembodied voice follows you around with mostly made-up shark facts, commentating on whatever you're doing.
Orcas, once the featured attraction at marine mammal parks, now have a new favorite trick: killing things.
You start out your shark life roaming the fresh waters of a Louisiana bayou as a young pup, and the map almost immediately starts to reveal its surprising diversity. Across 8 zones we see everything from the open sea to shallow and narrow waterways, and they're all loaded with unexpectedly interesting stuff and interconnected with sewer pipe mazes and underwater caves. There's weird submarine scenery galore and tons of pop culture references to find. These Gulf waters are teeming with wildlife, and it's often soothing to watch them lazily swim around, until you see the threatening shape of a big predator emerge from the murk. There's one extremely odd omission, though. The absence of dolphins serves no purpose. As neat as those animals are, their ecosystem just doesn't feel as lifelike as those in games like Far Cry or Red Dead Redemption, because nothing is aware of anything else. You'll never witness an alligator chomping on a turtle or a pod of orcas attacking seals, and that's kind of a bummer. Given that you spend 99% of your time very wet, it's a shame that the water effects don't look all that modern. If you put Maneater next to 2018's Sea of Thieves, for instance, it's not a favorable comparison at all. Underwater, it's just hazy looking without a hint of the light refraction you see in nature documentaries. It's just not impressive. Fighting underwater is pretty simple. You use the directional dodge buttons to evade, then hit the essential auto-target button to refocus the camera on the enemy who just darted past you. Then take a bite out of them, or whack them with your tail to stun them so that you can bite them more. There's a nice sharky touch to it in that when you catch a smaller creature in your jaws, you can make a side-to-side movement with the mouse or thumbsticks to thrash them for extra damage. Once you get the hang of combat's timing, it's not usually very challenging unless you're up against multiple big animals in a confined space. You quickly learn that you can outrun pretty much anything, so if you bite off more than you can chew, you can bail and snack on some little fish. Then return to the fight over and over again if necessary to whittle down bigger fish. I died a handful of times learning my limits, but after that it was rare that I went belly up. By the time I hit adult size, even several boss-level apex predator beasts started going down with barely a fight.
The great white is often referred to as the king of the ocean.
I wouldn't call combat bad, since it does have its moments, but it definitely suffers from a lack of variety and balance over a 15-hour playthrough. What changes things up, at least a little bit, is when you come up to the surface to eat you some man. It is admittedly hilarious to flop around like a giant angry fish out of water, as you munch on one beachgoer after the other. They don't actually really run from you, so it's as if every power pellet that Pac-Man gulped down screamed in terror before being shredded into a shower of blood and gore. But of course, once you've done it a few times, even this becomes a chore. Snacking on humans brings the shark hunters out after you, and like so much in Maneater, fighting boats full of drunken idiots is funny at first, but gets a little tedious pretty quickly. It seems overwhelming at first to dodge their constant barrage of lock-on attacks, but after just a few upgrades to my health and armor, I was basically ignoring them and smashing their boats to fiberglass splinters without doing whatever it is that sharks do instead of sweating. I'd have killed for a friggin' laser beam attached to my forehead, just for variety's sake. These fights went on long enough that I became numb to them, but you have to kill hunters by the literal boatload to draw the name Shark Hunters, which is one of the only ways to get body part upgrades. The thing is, almost none of the hunters have any distinctive weaponry or anything to make their fight stand out, so half the time I didn't even realize I'd killed one until the reward screen popped up. They could have used a bigger boat. You'd expect combat variety to come from how you equip yourself, but Maneater's upgrades never radically change how you fight. There are only 3 sets, Bone, Bioelectric, and Shadow, and they really boil down to being best for fighting boats, best for killing animals, and best for killing large groups, respectively. You can mix and match your jaws, head, dorsal fin, body, and tail as you please, and the resulting Frankenhark's monster, looks kind of awesome. But considering you just have to fast travel to one of your safe haven grottos to swap out parts at will, there's not much of a decision to be made other than which set to dump incremental upgrade points into first. It's absolutely fun to play as Mutant Jaws on steroids. Maneater chews the metaphorical scenery as often as it has you devouring the human and diverse aquatic inhabitants of the Gulf of Mexico, and that's some good dumb entertainment for a while. But if you're wondering whether its shallow combat and simplistic upgrades can sustain that excitement for the roughly 15 hours it takes to become a hulking megashark and reach the end of the uninspired satirical revenge story, it cannot. For more on Maneater, check out our extended gameplay clips of Feeding Frenzy Madness. And for everything else, stick with IGN.